Let's talk about what's happening in Syria. So, as we covered on Monday night, there was an attack, a chemical attack. 20 children have been killed. 52 adults were killed. It was happened on Tuesday, actually, and so we discussed it. What is difficult about this conversation, just from the human side, the human element, seeing the images, seeing the pictures, seeing the children dying, dead, and putting that in context of an ongoing civil war, that we sit back and we sit on the side and we decide whether or not it's something that we should get involved with in the first place. And that seems to be the debate on the American side of the conversation. Should we get involved anyway? From any perspective, from any angle. Of course, there's the political considerations, and we'll discuss that in a minute. But whenever we talk about Syria, we have very loud voices who shout that there should be no intervention whatsoever of any kind. But and as much as I appreciate that sentiment, it's when you see occasions like this, when you see incidents like this that happen, and you ask yourself, who has a responsibility to intervene and stop this? We've answered it really over the last, I think 2011 is when or at least the Arab Spring Civil War, possibly around this. So we've answered that question for the last 7 years, right? For the last 7 years, we've said a lot, but we've not done a lot. And so we really did not have the political capital, the political will to actually get involved. And so now this has become more of a political struggle in the United States, because where President Obama drew a red line previously, Assad allegedly crossed that red line, and President Obama still chose not to intervene. Now, this is Donald Trump's situation. This is Donald Trump's problem. The first thing Donald Trump does, and I have to point this out, because on yesterday, Donald Trump showed just how irresponsible Donald Trump can be, as usual, per usual. And instead of addressing the issue head on, what he does is he issues a statement essentially saying, yeah, this is bad, what's happening in Syria, but what's really bad is that this is because of the weakness of the Obama administration, because the Obama administration wasn't decisive enough. The Obama administration didn't do anything about this. And so ultimately what happened in Syria on yesterday is the result of President Obama's weakness. So instead of addressing the atrocity, instead of addressing the human loss of life, he instead does what he does best, which is hide behind President Obama. I've never seen a grown man or a grown woman in a position of great responsibility hide and shirk his responsibility every opportunity that he gets. But this is what Donald Trump did. Now, to highlight the hypocrisy of Donald Trump, there are a series of tweets that if you just he's not even careful enough with his lies or with his hypocrisy, because if you simply Google or search Twitter for Donald Trump in Syria and Obama, you'll get this series of tweets back to back showing you exactly his position when President Obama was in charge. He said, again, to our very foolish leader, do not attack Syria. This is September 5th, 2013. If you do, many very bad things. Oh, my God. Many very bad things will happen. And from that fight, the U.S. gets nothing. He goes on to say, President Obama, do not attack Syria. 2 days later, there is no upside and tremendous downside. Save your powder for another and more important day. Where the hell does this guy get his grammar? He went on to say on September 5th, he said also, the only reason President Obama wants to attack Syria is to save face over his very dumb red line statement. Do not attack Syria. Fix the USA. Finally said, we should not attack Syria. But if they make the stupid move to do so, the Arab League, whose members are laughing at us, should pay. So as the clown in chief, sideline, backseat driver, he was criticizing the possibility of President Obama getting involved in this civil war. Then when he becomes president, instead of addressing the issue, see, this is something that we should not even have to talk about. But as the president of the United States, he issued an official statement from the White House. His press secretary parroted the same comments and essentially, instead of addressing, not essentially, absolutely deflected from his responsibility as the president of the United States to at least condemn Bashar al-Assad. And instead of doing that, on yesterday, he turns around and blames President Obama. Well, the day has changed. John McCain and a litany of other Congress leaders, congressional leaders, senators have spoken out and condemned Donald Trump because he did not unequivocally condemn Bashar al-Assad. And so the day has turned, and here's Donald Trump now. The language has changed dramatically. Tillerson, Secretary of State Tillerson, is saying now that Russia needs to reconsider their ally in Assad. You have the UN ambassador, Nikki Haley, who's now last week said that we're no longer really interested in ousting Assad. Now her language has changed dramatically. And Donald Trump, instead of using this occasion to attack President Obama, who's somewhere on an island writing his book, doesn't really give a damn about what Donald Trump thinks. Finally, he owns up to his responsibility to at least make a statement. Not necessarily to go to war, not necessarily to try to out Bashar al-Assad, but to make a statement in the face of a human rights violation that smacks the entire international community in the face. And so this is what he finally said in a press conference. He said, when you kill innocent children, innocent babies, little babies, that crosses many lines. Nikki Haley, as we stated, this is what she said to the UN Security Council. She said, time and time again, Russia uses the same false narrative to deflect attention from their ally in Damascus. When the United Nations consistently fails in its duties to act collectively, there are times in the life of states that we are all compelled to take our own action, prelude to some type of conflict. And then you have, actually, I think we have a clip, right? We have a clip of Donald Trump when he's being asked about the incident, and this is his response. Listen to Donald Trump.
Before I move on to the king, can I just quickly ask you if the chemical attack crosses a red line for you?
It crossed a lot of lines for me. When you kill innocent children, innocent babies, little babies, with a chemical gas that is so lethal, people were shocked to hear what gas it was. That crosses many, many lines, beyond a red line, many, many lines.
Somebody define red line to Donald Trump, please. That's number one. Number two, he went on to say, I will tell you, it's already happened. That's my attitude towards Syria and Assad. My attitude has changed very much. You're now talking about a whole different level. So in a very clumsy way, the president of the United States realized that this is not something that he can play domestic politics with and try to attack the previous administration. This is actually something that the president of the United States needs to address. How he addresses it, we all can debate that. We're all going to debate that pretty robustly. But we can all agree that the president of the United States, in the face of a chemical attack, a human rights violation that has smacked the international community in the face, this is actually a continuation, right? We've had a lot of arguments over Assad. I've had a lot of tacit Assad sympathizers, right? Who under no circumstances want any type of intervention in the first place. And we let you talk, you call in and we discuss it. So we're going to have that debate. But this is not Assad's first trip to the rodeo with chemical weapons, right? And so this is a continuation of what Assad has been doing. And I want to put this one point here before we move on. This is not to say, viva la resistance, right? This is not to say that we're behind the rebels or we're behind the rebels that once were and no more, and then the rebels that have changed and become Al Qaeda. We're not saying any of that. What we're saying is that the president of the damn United States of America should be versed enough on the issue to address the issue succinctly and in a meaningful way, and to communicate to the international community that we actually are concerned about this type of violation. Now, what will he do? We're going to have to see. The language has shifted dramatically, right? So last week they were talking about we're no longer interested in ousting Assad. Cool. What I mean, let's see how it plays out, right? This happens. This is the very next thing that happens, and now the language has changed dramatically. The question is, what are they going to do about it, and how are they going to go about it? Because the last thing that we need is another quagmire. The last thing that we need is to get so entrenched into another war that we can't find our way out. So there's the reason I say that specifically is because Nikki Haley is transmitting in her language that this is something that the United States will try to do on their own. And that would be the greatest folly. Right? She said, when the United Nations consistently fails in its duty to act collectively, there are times in the life of states, individual states, where we are compelled to take our own action. The last thing that we need to do as the United States is to go into Syria, going into Syria alone. But now we have the attention of Syria now has the attention of the president of the United States. And what I'm afraid is going to happen is he's going to shift from being, oh, we can leave Assad alone, to being, let's go in next week and take out Assad. Right. And somewhere between those two extremes has to be a better solution, if there is a solution at all. So we have to keep our eye on President Trump. And now that he's woke and he sees the lines, the many lines, not just red lines, but the many lines that have been crossed. Now we have to see exactly how far he's going to go.